In 2022, natural disasters dished out over $313 billion in damage. Now, if you don't want your finances wrecked by the next monster hurricane, it is essential to have a plan in place. Financial professional George Pikounis from Burns Estate Planning is here to give some tips that can help your wallet weather catastrophes. George, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So let's start by diving into why it's important for people to prepare financially for those types of disasters.
Well, in 2022, there were 18 weather-related disaster events nationwide that dealt over $1 billion of damage each. And according to a recent survey, nearly a quarter of Americans have no emergency fund set aside for natural disasters, even though about 2/3 of them believe modern disasters have increased in their severity and damage.
So tell us how we can get our finances ready before calamity strikes.
Well, first, have emergency cash on hand. You want to consider keeping a small amount of cash locked away, maybe in a home safe where it's protected from outside elements. And a few $100s in cash can help pay for temporary housing, food, medical expenses. And then banks and ATMs, they may not be up and running for days after the storm.
Can you give us a guideline about how much we should set aside? I mean, what are some guidelines for people at home to think about in terms of setting a benchmark for what they should aim for?
When we look at an emergency fund in general, even as a financial advisor, the general advice I'm giving my clients is keep at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses in an easily accessible account. So that would be your emergency fund. So if you live in one of these areas that is susceptible to these natural disasters, it's even more important to make sure you have that money available. And this money, again, set aside for emergencies only, just so you don't have to take on debt to make ends meet. And then that way, if the emergency fund comes up, you dip into it. We want to make sure that we're rebuilding that as quick as possible.
We are just now getting into hurricane season. Is there anything else that you think Floridians particularly should bear in mind when thinking about preparing for hurricanes?
So consolidate your important documents. We mentioned the fireproof container or waterproof container earlier. So make sure those are there with your emergency cash. That way, if it comes and damages your home, you know where those are. Also, upload these to an electronic document for yourself so it's readily available. I actually have a list of important documents to consider on our website, burnsestateplanning.com. And then lastly, and arguably most importantly, just review your insurance policy as we get into this season, right? A lot of people assume that their homeowner's insurance is going to cover the damage to their homes. This may not be the case. Most policies do not cover earthquake or flood damage. So just make sure you're considering something like flood insurance in addition to your basic homeowner's policy.
And getting ahead is the name of the game. Once again, financial professional George Pikounis from Burns Estate Planning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.